Good morning and welcome to World Talks. I'm Saria Strzemska. Ursula von der Leyen has just nominated people for the top jobs in her commission. However, the process is not over. Now the future commissioners need to be approved by the European Parliament. To discuss this, I am joined here this morning by Renata Mienkowska Norkiene, political scientist, University of Warsaw. Good morning, delighted to have you with us.
Good morning, I'm glad, thank you.
So let me start by asking you about structure. There are now only two layers of command, executive vice presidents and commissioners. The previous third layer of vice presidents was dropped. So why was that?
Well, I think that now Ursula von der Leyen wants to simply have a little bit more control over what is going to happen within the European Commission. Some of the commissioners, for example, they have even two portfolios. And one of the portfolios is directly connected to Ursula von der Leyen's, let's say, supervision. And the other one is more like a traditional way of acting. So I think that the very main reason was that there must be a tiny bit more control, as we have been facing recently really serious problems within the European Union. And secondly, there are only three main areas, and previously it was six. So we have those three huge challenges in front of the European Union. And I think that's why also the structure of the European Commission has been adjusted accordingly. Plus, of course, there is also a little bit more control over six vice presidents, and then there is, let's say, a more flat structure of the whole rest. By the way, those vice presidents, it's also more a question, I would say, of gender balance, new old member states balance, and so on. So I think it's also a bit of political correctness in all that.
Right, so as you just pointed out, this updated lineup reflects key areas of focus, right, for the EU. So what are these areas?
Well, first of all, it's of course those economic challenges and development. This is absolutely crucial for the European Union, which basically means that the EU has to become a little bit more competitive on the world market, because we know that with the EU, it hasn't been that obvious recently. So the EU has been losing its contribution to the global GDP, for example, throughout, let's say, a decade. It has fallen down from around 20 to 15% of the overall GDP worldwide. So that's challenge number one. It's huge. Now it's based a little bit on this Mario Draghi report, which you have obviously also touched upon many times while broadcasting. And the second area is obviously defense and safety, security. This is something that is obviously related to the war that we have behind our eastern border, but also it's all about those migrations that we have been facing recently, and anything that could undermine our safety and security as the European Union. And finally, we have democracy. And this is obviously also a very important topic, because it shouldn't be taken for granted that we will always be democratic. Far-right, anti-democratic parties, populist parties, they are still a huge threat, and actually ever-growing threat recently in the European Union. So this is this third area, I would say, which has to be covered also within the new structure of the European Commission.
Right, and also the defense, right? It still continues to be one of the major challenges.
Yes,
but
exactly.
let me ask you about gender, because von der Leyen was hoping for a gender parity in the Commission. However, it seems that the final lineup is only 40% female. So why is that? Were countries not able to put forth female candidates?
Yeah, that's a very good question. You know, I've been also dealing a lot with gender equality also within the European Union scientifically. And in this case, it's a kind of a regression in the perception of the member states and approach of the member states. Because despite the request of von der Leyen that each of the member states should present one woman and one man for a specific portfolio, and generally to the European Commission, hardly any member state actually did it. So we had a situation in which Ursula von der Leyen really got from the member states mainly male candidates. And initially it was only 20% of women. So now it's twice more, actually. So it's twice as many candidates as we received in this first, let's say, round of presenting candidates. And then Ursula von der Leyen simply insisted on replacing some male candidates by female candidates. And this is what some of the member states actually kind of obeyed to. And but it wasn't, for example, the case of Poland. Just to make it clear, in Poland is a good example. Only Piotr Serafin was presented as a candidate, and there was absolutely no counter candidate from Poland, a female counter candidate. Moreover, there was a big debate in Poland at a certain point, of course, after presenting this candidacy, that there was a deal between Prime Minister Donald Tusk and President Andrzej Duda. So if you can imagine those political deals, of course, not necessarily like the one in Poland, but it's a very important political compromise who will go to become a commissioner, in particular, if the commissioner gets a serious portfolio. And that was the case of Poland and many other cases where male candidates actually got the post, or not yet got the post, because as you mentioned, there is still some way to go, but still, and some road to, not always a straight one to go through, but now it's the European Parliament that will organize the hearings and then the voting, and then it's also the qualified majority voting in the European Council. So still those candidates are candidates and they can be replaced, and who knows, maybe with the female ones, some of those who are now male candidates.
That's interesting. So let's get to this juicy part, I mean the vetting. So there are rumors that not all commissioners will pass the hearings that you've mentioned, so held by MEPs. So who is most likely to drop out? Because there are already lists of people who are not so secure, right?
Well, you know, this is... This is a tricky question because, yes, indeed, of course, there are candidates that are stronger, that's for sure, and candidates which are weaker. And those weaker candidates, I would say, are either the ones which come from the countries which are stubborn in disobey, let's say, the European standards. Although, for example, Hungary, which we might have in mind here, they have already replaced their initial candidate, I would say, with another one, but no one knows if this candidate will also go through. There have been also some, let's say, debates and problems around candidates which are not fully in line with the European standards, like the Italian candidate. On the other hand, we have to be aware of the fact that Ursula von der Leyen also cannot I would say, respond. Her candidacy was also a kind of a compromise. And there are rumors that she has a deal with Giorgia Meloni, for example, to appoint an Italian candidate of Meloni's, let's say, choice. And now it's the European Parliament that can change a little bit the landscape. But, you know, it's very, it may be very problematic because some of the candidates are weaker simply regarding the portfolio. They are not good specialists. On the other hand, if Ursula von der Leyen now presents the candidates, it means she already more or less knows what their weaknesses and strengths are. French candidate is also a kind of a result of a compromise, but here still it's an open, I would say, space for maybe some other option here because there is a huge criticism. So a lot is dependent also on how the European Parliament will perceive it, how Ursula von der Leyen as such will also be perceived as the one who, for example, has some flirt with far right. So I think that the European Parliament's perception may be we cut out all candidates that may undermine, let's say, this usual center-right course of the European Union and who might show some far-right, let's say, ambitions. So here, I suppose the European Parliament might try to cut them out.
All right, so I just wanted to take a step back and take a more general look at what's happening, more holistic look. So the announcement was already a week late. Then we had the situation with the French nominee, right, who said that he will not, he does not want to be a commissioner. So what kind of European Commission are we looking at moving forward? Are there some traits that we can already see that will be there, some divisions perhaps, some challenges?
Yes, that's a very good question also in the context of your previous question, because we know also that Ursula von der Leyen witnessed a kind of a scandal before she was reappointed. Namely, there were a few members of the European Commission who opposed when she nominated her friend, supposedly, as a kind of a special envoy for medium and small size enterprises. And this scandal was visible also because there were quite clear divisions within the European Commission also at that point of time. So now Ursula von der Leyen tried to avoid it, but this is not so easy because there are still those voices, in particular from the left side of the political scene, let's put it that way. And so I would say that those divisions might go through those who accept any kind of flirt with far right and those who don't. That's the first thing. Secondly, we have also divisions within the European Union regarding security and safety, which is an incredible topic now for us, of course. And Kaja Kallas is going to be also Vice President of the Commission and responsible High Representative, which will be responsible for security and, of course, contacts with those countries which are here involved. And also, she is anti-Russian. We know it. And she's on our side of the force, if I can say that, speaking about perception of Russia. However, not everyone in Europe, in the European Union, thinks alike. Like Germany, for example, they are quite skeptical regarding a tough course towards Russia. And one can hear more and more, let's say, clear voices that that maybe Germany expect rather peace than clear winning of Ukraine. Of course, I can't say that it's 100%. I would say trend. This is not so obvious, but one can hear certain voices which confirm that supposition. So I would say that these divisions will be around, first of all, question of defense and security. Secondly, of course, migration, because we know that this policy has been revised in many countries, but also migration pact hasn't actually fully been implemented yet. So we are still expecting the first, at least, results of its operational, success or a failure, we will see. Here also the divisions are quite clear. And now we have also more and more problems with climate and with what has been going on recently also in Poland. Look, we have floodings, but for example, Southern European countries, they suffer from actually being more and more dry. So we have these problems which are related to climate change. But the problem is that, for example, Germany have just started denying, let's say, actually the whole reasoning behind climate policy. So we will have divisions over that most probably as well.
Well, interesting time ahead of us. Renata Mienkowska Norkiene, thank you for being with us this morning and for your insight. Much appreciated. And with this, we conclude World Talks. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World.